After years of watching himself and his friends completely fail at texting women, a man eventually has to ask a serious question. What is the most effective, scientifically grounded way to text women? Most men have asked themselves this same question at some point, usually after a painful silence, a delivered message that never received a reply, or a conversation that fizzled out for reasons they could never quite understand. The frustration is real, the confusion is widespread, and the stakes feel higher than they probably should. But the truth is, texting has become one of the primary battlegrounds of modern attraction. A man can be charismatic in person, confident in his presence, and grounded in his frame, but the moment he picks up his phone, something shifts. The rules change. The dynamics transform. And suddenly, the same man who can hold eye contact and command a room finds himself second-guessing every word he types. This is why so many men struggle. They apply the logic of in-person interaction to a medium that operates on completely different principles. Texting is not a replacement for face-to-face connection, but it is a bridge. And if a man does not know how to build that bridge properly, he will never cross it. This is exactly the situation many men find themselves in. They have read the typical guru techniques, the copy-paste lines, the alpha scripts, and the fake personas that promise to turn them into irresistible texting machines. They have watched clickbait videos that offer nothing but empty promises and recycled advice. And they have likely tried some of these tactics, only to find that they either fall flat or feel so inauthentic that they cannot stomach using them again. The problem with most dating advice is that it addresses symptoms without understanding the underlying structure. It tells men what to say, but it does not explain why certain words work and others fail. It hands them a script, but it does not teach them how to think. And without that deeper understanding, a man is left guessing every time the conversation takes an unexpected turn. This is where real research becomes invaluable. Social psychology, human behavior, dopamine pathways, attraction theory, and communication patterns all offer insights that the typical guru simply ignores. When a man understands the mechanisms behind attraction, he no longer needs a script. He can navigate any conversation with confidence because he understands the principles that govern it. And that understanding transforms texting from a source of anxiety into a tool of connection. The opener, the very first message a man sends to any woman the moment he slides into her DMs, is one of the most critical moments in the entire interaction. It sets the tone, establishes the frame, and determines whether she will engage or ignore. The best first message depends entirely on who she is and how he knows her. Context is everything. A generic opener that works for one scenario will fail miserably in another. That is why breaking openers down into specific scenarios is essential. When a man approaches a random woman from Instagram, the first rule is simple. Never slide into her DMs with a generic greeting like "hey" or "hi." That is the fastest way to blend in with the other 200 men who did the same thing that week. There is a psychological concept called reactance, which essentially states that people resist when they feel someone is trying too hard to enter their life. A random "hey" feels like pressure. It feels forced. It signals that the sender has put zero effort into the message and expects a response simply because he decided to type a word. Instead, a man should wait for her to post a story and then reply to something specific. Comment on her outfit, the place she is at, the music in the background, or something interesting in the scene. For example, "That cafe looks cool. Is it actually good or just Instagram good?" This feels natural. It creates conversation flow. It lowers resistance because it engages with something she has chosen to share, rather than demanding her attention out of nowhere. She feels seen, not stalked, and that subtle difference changes everything. When she is a classmate, the scenario becomes one of the easiest to navigate because they already share an environment. A man does not need a creative pickup line or a dramatic opener when he has built-in context at his disposal. He can start simple. Ask about homework, notes, an upcoming test, or a project deadline. Keep it natural and specific. For example, "Did you understand what we're supposed to do for tomorrow's assignment? Or do you have the notes from the last lecture?" Once she responds, he should not stop there. He should add a light, playful comment about the teacher or the class itself, something harmless and relatable like, "I swear our professor explains things in the most complicated way possible." Now he has two shared subjects to talk about, school and the teacher. Shared context creates comfort quickly because they are both experiencing the same environment. It removes pressure and makes the conversation feel organic rather than forced. From there, he can slowly transition into more personal topics once familiarity is established. The key is to recognize that proximity and shared experience are powerful tools that eliminate the need for forced creativity. When she is part of his friend group, the dynamic is different because they already share social space, which means he does not need a dramatic opener. The key here is subtlety and familiarity. Before the group goes out, he might text her, "Hey, how are you dressing tonight?" This is casual. It does not scream attraction. It feels practical. She might respond with, "Why?" And he can keep it simple by saying, "Don't want to be overdressed or underdressed." This keeps things light and removes pressure. He is not complimenting her yet. He is just creating a small private exchange between the two of them inside a shared social event. If she answers, and especially if she sends a picture, that is a good sign. Now, he can give a small, specific compliment like, "I like that color," or "That shirt actually suits you," or "Those shoes are a good choice." Notice how these compliments are calm and measured. No exaggeration, no overhyping. He is acknowledging her effort without acting impressed. Keep it smooth, controlled, and natural. The goal is not to overwhelm her. It is to create a subtle connection that stands out quietly because it feels genuine rather than performative. After the opener, a man should not immediately try to impress her. He should just continue the conversation casually and observe. Attraction is not hidden. It shows up clearly in behavior. A man does not need to guess how she feels. He simply needs to pay attention. If she consistently leaves him on red and does not attempt to re-engage later, her interest is near zero. He should not chase. He should not double text. Silence is information. If she replies hours later with short, dry responses like lol, yeah, or nice, her interest is probably between 0 and 25%. She is being polite, not engaged. In this situation, pushing harder only lowers his value. He should pull back and let it go. If she responds relatively quickly and the conversation feels balanced, meaning both are contributing equally, her interest is around 25 to 50%. He is not carrying the entire exchange. She asks questions, she reacts, she invests. For most men, that is a strong starting point. He does not need immediate obsession. He needs momentum. Once he sees balanced effort and consistent engagement, that is his signal to slowly build emotional tension and familiarity. The goal at this stage is to create familiarity without becoming predictable or boring. A man wants her to feel comfortable talking to him, like she is slowly getting to know him, but not like she has him completely figured out. Mystery and comfort must grow together. The first rule is simple. Avoid closed answers. If she asks, "How are you?" he should never respond with, "I'm fine." That immediately kills momentum and forces the conversation into a dead end. Closed answers give her nothing to build on. Instead, he should be specific and slightly interesting. For example, "I just watched this documentary about parrots. Didn't expect to get emotionally invested in a bird." Now she has material. She can ask about the documentary, joke about parrots, or share something related. He has opened multiple doors instead of shutting one. If she replies with something dry like, "That's nice," he should not panic and he should not retreat. He can redirect smoothly by saying, "Yeah, it made me realize parrots are smarter than most people. What's your favorite animal?" He keeps the momentum alive. Conversations only die when a man allows them to. At this stage, the goal becomes simple. A man wants her brain to associate him with curiosity and anticipation. Attraction grows when there is something unfinished, something slightly unresolved. This is where dopamine hooks come in. Dopamine is the chemical linked to anticipation and reward. Interestingly, it is not released the most when we receive something. It spikes when we expect something. That is why cliffhangers in movies work so well. The brain wants closure. A man can apply the same principle in conversation by leaving small, intriguing gaps. For example, I have a crazy story about my parrot phase, but that one's better in person. Now, he has planted a seed. Her mind naturally wonders, what happened? Why is it crazy? Why can't he say it now? He has not overshared. He has not dumped the entire story. He has created unfinished business. Unfinished stories create dopamine. Dopamine creates anticipation. Anticipation creates desire to continue the interaction. The key is subtlety. He should not force drama. He should just occasionally leave something unsaid. When she associates him with curiosity instead of predictability, she will start looking forward to his messages and eventually to seeing him in person. One of the biggest weaknesses of texting is the lack of facial expressions and tone. In real life, attraction builds through eye contact, voice tone, pauses, and body language. In text, all of that disappears. If a man is not careful, his messages can start to feel robotic and flat. That is why he needs to intentionally add emotion, but in a controlled way. He should use tone in his wording, stretching certain words occasionally to emphasize feeling. For example, "That was so awkward," or "No way, that actually happened." The stretched letters simulate vocal tone. They make the message feel alive rather than mechanical. Emojis can also help, but only when used sparingly. A single well-placed emoji adds warmth and expression. 10 emojis in every sentence make a man look childish and overly eager. The goal is balance. He wants to enhance emotion, not flood the conversation with it. When his texts carry subtle emotional tone, they feel more human. And when they feel human, connection builds faster. There is an interesting psychological detail most people overlook when texting: the typing bubble. Research suggests that human beings experience a small dopamine spike when they see that someone is typing. That little indicator creates anticipation. For a brief moment, the brain becomes curious. What are they about to say? Is it funny? Is it important? Is it something emotional? The anticipation itself is rewarding. A man can use this subtly. Instead of disappearing for long periods and replying hours later, he should respond in a reasonable time frame. But once he starts typing, he should not rush to press send immediately. He should type thoughtfully. Let the bubble appear for a few seconds. Then pause briefly before sending the message. This creates a small build-up of anticipation without looking calculated or dramatic. The key is not to overdo it. He is not playing games or artificially delaying responses for power. He is simply allowing a natural rhythm to form. Texting is not just about what a man says. It is also about pacing. And small details like timing can quietly increase emotional engagement without her even realizing why. If a man applies all of this correctly, her interest usually moves into the 50 to 75% range. She will start responding faster. She might initiate occasionally. She will ask about his day. But now he enters a dangerous zone. And this is where many men blow it all up. They commit what can be called the Napoleon mistake. At his peak, Napoleon Bonaparte controlled most of Europe. He was one of the most powerful men in history. But when it came to his letters to Josephine, he was needy, overly emotional, overly attached, and overly intense. He wrote desperate letters. He begged for responses. He displayed the kind of emotional clinginess that would make any modern dating coach cringe. And despite his power, despite his empire, despite his military genius, he could not hold on to his wife. The lesson is clear. Power in life does not protect a man from neediness in communication. At 50 to 75% interest, many men get attached. They double text. They over-explain. They panic if she is offline for 2 hours. They interpret silence as rejection and respond with desperation. This is the moment where everything that has been built can collapse in an instant. A man must resist the urge to chase harder when she pulls back. He must maintain his frame. He must remember that neediness destroys progress faster than anything else. Once a man has built comfort and curiosity, he needs to move beyond surface-level topics. Casual conversation can only take him so far. If he wants real connection, he must gradually introduce emotional depth. This step works best at night. Why? Because in the evening, cortisol, the body's main stress hormone, naturally drops. People feel less guarded, less distracted, and more open to emotional conversations. The day is over. Responsibilities are paused. The environment is quieter. Night conversations also allow for longer exchanges without interruptions from work, school, or social noise. If a man has built enough comfort, she will eventually open up. She might talk about something that stressed her out, something that frustrated her, something personal or vulnerable. This is his moment. He should not respond with something flat like, "That sucks," or "You'll be fine." That kills emotional momentum. Instead, he should respond with warmth and presence. For example, "If I were there right now, I'd give you a hug." That simple sentence creates safety and closeness. It shows empathy without being dramatic. If she responds positively, leaning into that tone, her interest is likely between 75 and 100%. At that point, he has built emotional comfort, and comfort is the foundation of attraction. Interest means nothing if a man does not move things forward. He can build attraction, comfort, and emotional connection. But if he never takes the lead, the interaction will slowly fade or drift into the friend zone. He must ask her out, but he has to do it strategically. That is where the deal closing sequence comes in. It has 3 simple parts: qualify, confirm, and close. First, qualify. He brings up something he genuinely wants to do. Keep it natural. "I've been wanting to check out that rooftop cafe downtown," or "There's this art exhibit I've been meaning to see." He is not asking her out yet. He is introducing the idea. Second, confirm. He pays attention to her reaction. If she says something like, "That actually sounds fun," or "Oh, I've heard about that place," that is his green light. Third, close. Now, he makes it concrete. "Then let's go this Friday," or "Let's check it out this weekend." It feels smooth because it flows from the conversation. No pressure, no awkward jump. And just like that, he has transitioned from texting to real life. That is how momentum becomes a date. The threshold of uncertainty has been crossed, and the bridge between digital connection and tangible reality has been built. In summary, texting is not about lines. It is about pacing, emotional tension, curiosity, and restraint. The man who masters these principles does not just text better. He stands out. He becomes the man whose messages she looks forward to, the man whose conversation feels alive, the man who knows when to lean in and when to pull back. He understands that attraction is not built through clever wordplay, but through emotional resonance. He knows that every message is an opportunity to create a feeling, and that the right feeling, delivered at the right pace, is far more powerful than any scripted line. And above all, he remembers that the goal is not to win a text exchange. It is to create a connection that is strong enough to survive the transition into real life. Because real connection, the kind that lasts, is not built through screens. It is built through presence. And presence begins the moment a man stops performing and starts existing without constant self-adjustment. When he reaches that point, texting is no longer a source of anxiety. It is simply another way of being himself, and that authenticity is what women ultimately respond to.